Hello everyone, this is Shadow Dragon with more test server action and water powers. For this episode we're going to look at the healer side of things, which I haven't really figured out yet. This is kind of a first look at it. And typically when I come across a new power I try to sort of reskin it after something I'm familiar with. So on the healer side, I'm most familiar with Sorcery and Celestial. And just looking at the descriptions, I started building it based on Sorcery. So in the first slot I have Solace of the Seas, and this is kind of a larger version of Circle of Protection, because it's a huge pool, covers the entire room, probably most rooms, and it does a heal over time. The second spot I have Blessing of the Depths, and this one is one of the flexible spots. Like I'd say Solace of the Seas is like a staple. Not sure what to put in the 2 spot yet, other than it should be an additional heal. In this case, it's just a heal that gets a buff from High Tide. And like in my previous video, High Tide in DPS stance was like buffing certain powers, and in healer stance, it's going to do the same. So it'll either give like a larger heal, an additional heal over time, or it will go critical. The third spot is usually my supercharge. So currently I just have Tranquil Pool in here. For the 4th spot I put High Tide. Usually this is like a melee AoE in most of my powers, including healer stance, like just to clear adds in case they get close. But there really isn't one for water. So I put High Tide. The 5 spot is the 2-man heal, or what I call the tank heal. So it gets the healer plus the tank. And the last spot is a shield. So a lot of this actually has to be tested over time in various instances, because if you just look at the descriptions of all the healing powers together, it's going to feel like we don't have enough loadout spots for it. Because typically you're going to have like a heal over time, then there's going to be a multi-target heal, a supercharge heal, then you've got your tank heal and your shield, and then in the case of water, you have this High Tide mechanic. And then there's the cooldown mechanic called Riptide. So that's 7 slots, of which you can only pick 6. So it's going to be a tough decision whichever one gets cut. Yeah, this is just like, this is reskinned after my sorcery build, but any one of these can get swapped out. Like I might think about swapping the supercharge out for Riptide. Because basically Riptide will allow you to use High Tide twice, and most of these abilities take advantage of High Tide, like Blessing of the Depths, the multiplayer heal, the tank heal also, as well as the shield. So being able to use High Tide twice might outweigh the supercharge heal, but again, that's going to have to be tested. But anyway, let's take a look at what we have so far. So Solace of the Seas is probably the flashiest move, and I'm going to step back so you could look at the size of it. And if it's covering like where all these jellyfish go up to. This is probably like celestial range. That's definitely more than sorcery. And for Blessing of the Depths, we're going to take a look at two versions of it. So this is the regular, which you really don't see much of because we can't heal the sparring targets. And this is the High Tide version. So you just see raindrops. And what that's doing is it's doing the heal over time. So that's what the raindrops represents. The 2-man heal, normal version looks like this. And High Tide, we're just waiting on the cooldown. And you can see it has a long cooldown, which is why you may want to consider Riptide. Okay, so High Tide and heal. So it's a slightly more explosive effect for representing a larger heal. And for the shield, in this case it's Tempest Guard. So that is the normal. The cooldown is actually close to the effects on the shield. Okay, so this is the High Tide version. So when this ends, it's supposed to give a heal, but let's see if there's an effect, if there's a special effect. Okay, so that's a pretty obvious heal, plus sound effect. So I think they do get the message across visually as well as with audio when you have High Tide up on the power. Some other things to look at. This is the current loadout I have is spec'd for a raid, meaning that all of these affect 8 players except for the 2-man. There are also like alert moves that affect 4 players. So like if you want to spec an armory specifically for alerts, there is a 4-man shield that you would swap out Tempest Guard for. And I think that's just lower power cost. Yeah, it's 300 versus 450. And then Blessing of the Depths, I think, can also be replaced with something else that's a 4-man heal. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, Mending Wave is 4. They're both 300 though. But the alert one has a faster cooldown, 3 seconds versus 6, so that's the difference. So let's take a look at the 4-person heal. Okay, so there also is a High Tide version. So the High Tide one will critically heal. And it has that water explosion at the end, signifying the High Tide effect. So the alert heal will actually be like a stronger heal with High Tide, but it's only hitting 4 people, so it's not one you're going to use in a raid. And the 4-man shield is just a bubble, there is no High Tide version. So if you have an alert build, alert specific build, high tide in this case is only there twice. Oh wait, the supercharge actually has high tide too, but it's there one less times than the raid build because the shield doesn't use it. So that would be another thing to weigh in. Because if you're using high tide on one less loadout, you may not even think about riptide. As far as other cooldowns, the only one I'm seeing that takes a long time is really the shield. Solace of the Seas also, but the effects of both of those last like really close to the cooldown, so I don't think I would use Riptide on those if I had it in here. And the other heals are really fast. Okay, let me just take another look at the raid build. So I just want to see the multiplayer heal. That is pretty fast. And the shield. Yeah, I'm thinking if I had Riptide in either of those, it would be used over High Tide. Like just so High Tide can be used twice. Because I don't feel like Solace or the shield need to be run twice. I mean, I guess the shield could, like if you're getting hit. Yeah, so this is what the loadout would look like if it was High Tide Riptide. So it would be like High Tide, immediately wipe it, and then you could use it again for another heal. Okay, so right now, like, getting an overall picture of water, it sort of has, it resembles different power sets, like, depending on stance and depending on build. So right now, the DPS one I had before, which is actually saved here. Oh no, that's something else. I think that's the armory bug, because I never had that loadout before. I didn't save that loadout, at least. But yeah, anyway, so far my normal DPS stance. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, the way I built this one, it reminds me of Quantum. And then so far this healer stance reminds me of Sorcery. The next step I want to do is try to come up with a battle healer, which I think would be skinned after Celestial, because Celestial is doing like attacks that are doing like reduced damage and healing at the same time when you're in healer stance. That can't be done with the loadout that I have right now, because nothing here does damage. That's a pure heal. That's a pure heal, and that is a pure heal. No damage numbers. So if there is going to be a battle heal stance, it's none of these powers. So that I'm going to have to play around with, but I will stop this here for now. Thanks for watching.